Good afternoon, Sparkly lovers. So, welcome to my channel, Sparkly Tiana. So, today in our live session, we are diving into the Victorian era. Specifically, this live session is created for those who are studying English literature in Sri Lanka. So, most of you are requesting me more of these kind of videos related to English literature. So I thought of doing a video for Victorian literature because it's one of my favorite literature era when I'm studying literature. So I thought of starting from this session. This will be my first live session regarding English literature. So let's begin with the Victorian literature era. So if you are watching and if you have any kind of questions regarding related to so when people say Victorian literature, it's easy to imagine these British people in heavy velvet coats drinking tea and talking super formally. If you have watched some of the movies, films, uh, just like Jane Eyre and some of the Charles Dickens related stories that was created into movies, you can just imagine the lifestyle of the Victorian people. It's that simple to imagine that in our head. But honestly, when it comes to the literature of this era, it's kind of very like if we come to describe it with just one word, so I would say the literature of this era is wild. It's full of ghost stories and family dramas, deep psychological breakdowns, and massive class divides, and characters who are just as messy and dramatic as anyone in a modern drama series. So, if you have read a few stories, or if you went through the poetry or the drama uh, within that time period, uh, you would agree with me that it's those stories are really related to these kind of topics. I would mention them again, but related to ghost stories or maybe deep psychological breakdowns, or it's really about and it is like that. By running from 1837 to 1901, this Victorian era run under Queen Victoria. So this period changed the world, and it definitely changed how stories are told. So let's break down the big themes and the legendary authors and the currents, the core currents of the era without any boring academic things. So I'm going to talk about in point formation, point wise. So let's make it more sense by describing in point version how uh, these things happened in Victorian era. So before we jumped into the books that was written in Victorian era, I would like to like to see the social things, the activities related to that era. I mean, the Victorian period. What actually happened in the society in that time period. So let's dig into those special events or the things happened in that time period, and then we can discuss about the authors and the novels and all the literature works related to Victorian era. So the first point I have here is science versus religion. So can you just imagine growing up believing the universe that was neatly organized by God, exactly as written in religious text? And then in 1859, if you have a book or a paper, I would recommend if you can write down the points. If you are a student studying literature, it will help you to write the essay type questions and do your own research. So in that time period, people were like, they grow up believing the universe was like neatly organized by the god, like exactly written in those religious texts. So then in 1859, Charles Darwin drops on the origin of species, and suddenly everything changed. The human are also part of evolution. So, read into the glow. Writers were very panicked at this. Like, until that, until 1859, before Charles Darwin's this theory came into public, the people believed in that everything was created by God and it was so neat, and uh, there's nothing to do with human in this revolution. Like they didn't even think about this word revolution. So after this theory by this revolutionary theory by Charles Darwin, everything suddenly changed, and the writers were the people who panicked, and they uh, related this topic into their writing. So, what like the people didn't know like what to believe anymore, and the literature became the place where they tried to figure out if life even had a purpose. Like they were so lost because all these years, all this time, they grew up in a society with the religion that everyone taught, like tell that everything around them and everything, including the human, and this nothing to do with the human species in the society, that everything was managed and done by the god. But because of the theory, like scientifically, when these theories come to the society, when the people get to know about this, when they hear these kind of things, they were kind of panicked, and they couldn't believe what they are hearing, because this was something new to the society, and science was kind of against the religious practical things. That science is kind of uh, the scientists became more into these inventions, and they became more curious. And when the society get to know these things, they kind of get more excited, and actually not excited, I would say panicked, and they became fear, like they are kind of lost what to believe from these two aspects, like science or the religion. So all these years what have been, uh, they were just believing in the text uh, included in the religious books. So that's one of the main topic that you gonna study or research in order to know about more about Victorian era. So science and religion. Then one of the main and the biggest, I would say, biggest topic, most one of the important topic that you might involved, or you might study when it comes to Victorian literature, Victorian period, industrial revolution, and the working class. So Britain went like they were shifting from farmers to factory workers overnight. It was like a sudden move. Like it was so that shift was so sudden. Like quickly it happened. The cities like London grew filthy, crowded, and unequal. This inequality in the society was so real because of the Industrial Revolution. People were who lived in the villages, they were moving to the cities, and due to these there were so many people and the city was more crowded, and the factories all over, like everywhere, and the people were working like robots. So you had to like super wealthy factory owners living next to starving children. So that's how the society, the reality of the society. So you can see that wealthy factory owners or the wealthy people living next to the starving children, they are just divided in from a, uh big wall. So in the same city, there are two types of working class people. Those are like very poor and kind of starving. But in the same next behind that wall, there's a wealthy, very rich families living and having enjoying a very luxurious lifestyle. So this was like a horrible condition and was so real in that time period. So the writers could not ignore this thing because that was so real, and it became a massive problem in the society that the writers couldn't ignore. So they started writing conditions of England. Uh, they used novels to expose the dark reality behind all that British industrial progress. You can just go through when you were reading, like especially I remember in Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, uh, they also uh, one of this part included the Industrial Revolution, the how the same society, the same town, the same city is divided within the poverty and the so-called rich people, the wealthy people who owns the factories, and the poor families who are working in these factories. So that's the reality. And the next topic is that would help you to study when it comes to Victorian literature is gender roles and angels in the house. What I meant by angels in the house is uh, I would get into that. So society had a very a rigid rule book for men and women. So men went out into public world of businesses and politics, and women were supposed to stay at home, look pretty, and they were supposed to be the pure submissive character of angel in the house. Like um, they were so limited. The women in that time period in the society was so limited because they had to stay at home, and the men was the one who has all these I would say has this chance to go out whenever they wanted to, and they handled everything, the important aspects in the society, like the businesses, the politics, and everything, and even in the household. They are the one who's like taking decisions, and the women are just like more like ornaments that are supposed to be like stay at home and to like having this. kind of angel uh, kind of characters. Like they have limits all the time. So they were kind of put it in a box, and even when it comes to taking decisions or living their own lives, there are so many like restrictions, but they were not directly given those restrictions. But when it comes, like when you study, take two or three novels together, and you when you study the role of the women, of like taking as an example from those characters, you will understand, you will realize how it is, the role of the women in that society, in that time period. So it's like that. This is a broad topic that I would like to talk about in a separate video, because there are so many things to share about these gender roles and all the other topics that I mentioned here before, especially when we talk about the Industrial Revolution and the working class. There's more to tell, more to talk about with examples. So, if you like to do me a separate video for each of these topics, I would love to do that, because as a when I was studying English literature, I really hope that there were like more support, like even through social medias like this, YouTube and everything. If I could get more support for my studies, so that's why I'm this is kind of my passion, so that's why I'm sharing all these things with you, because I know when you are a literature student, there's nothing called okay, this information is enough. So when you know the better, you can write more and more, like easily, the essays, and you can just go through deeply in those topics, any of the topics, when you are studying literature. So, as I said, these are like very broad topics that I would like to discuss separately. So, you're welcome anytime to request or comment any topic, any kind of topic related to literature. And since I'm doing a Victorian literature period video, you can just ask which topic should I speak first in a separate video. Okay, the fourth one is about the British Empire and the anxiety abroad. So, what I meant by this was by the late 80s, the Britain ruled over massive chunk of globe, including our own island, so which was then a British Ceylon at that time period. So you know about this colonization and all, the Britain gaining their power as much as they can. So while early writers are bragged about the empire and adventure, the later Victorian writers started getting paranoid by these kind of actions. They worried about what would happen if the colonized world like infected or challenged the mother country. So they see this as a different way. So if I repeat that in a more clear way, so if you study, so the earlier, when the British are gaining power through colonization, the early writers, they were kind of appreciating, or they were just they see it as an adventure, but it was never the same for the late Victorian writers. They started getting paranoid and they worried about what would happen. So they were kind of thinking in the opposite way. They were thinking what would happen if the colonized world was infected or challenged, and the mother country, which is obviously the British Empire. What would happen if this all the infected countries, that means all the countries that was under colonization of this British Empire, act against of the mother country. So they were thinking in that way, totally the opposite way. So you can feel that secret dread in monster stories like Dracula. If you have read Dracula, I bet you have read, whether you are a literature student or not, I bet you have read the book, the novel Dracula. So it's as the same. So it's about this. So I won't take this moment to go through that book, but it's in Dracula. It's all uh, about that. How he's like, he was Dracula trying to get power uh, for like he was kind of planning to build an empire of his own. So that was his plan. So so these are the four main points that I would like to bring your attention when studying about Victorian literature. So, if I go through them again, so the first one we talked about was science versus religion, and then we discussed about the Industrial Revolution and the working class, and the next thing was the gender roles and the angel in the house. The angel in the house, what I meant was the role of the women, because they were just supposed to be at home, just like more like an ornament, because all the major roles were done by the men in the society, but there was just so less room for the women in the society, and they were not supposed to take part uh, social works, like when it comes to politics, even the writers as well. So so this is there the when it comes to comparison between men and women at that time period. And then the British Empire and the anxiety abroad. So uh, anxiety abroad, that keyword I mentioned. So these later Victorian writers thought that the colonized people will act against this British Empire. So they didn't see it as an adventure. They were just getting started, paranoid about these kind of actions, what this British Empire, uh, like expanding of this empire, looks like, and the consequences it would be in the future. So let's move to the novelist in this era. So, first novelist I would like to talk about Charles Dickens from 1812 to 1870. So, his vibe is more into unforgettable characters, like more into hilarious, and also into heavy emotional characters. For example, his some of the main works are Oliver Twist, Great Expectations, Bleak House. So why his works matters? So Dickens grew up poor and even had to work in a blacking factory as a kid. So while his dad was in debts prison, so there were actually debts prison in that time. So he has to work. So because of that, he wrote from personal pain. He experienced. He wrote from through his experience. So what he actually experienced when he was a kid. So he used his stories to expose the corruption of the schools, the cruel workhouses, what actually happened inside there, and the legal system that favored the rich So when you read Dickens, you aren't just reading a story, but you're looking at 19th century social justice campaign, because from his the writers usually writes from his experiences, or it initially affects the environment, the time period he's living, and the uh, special things, special events that takes place in the society and the world at that time. So that's why I especially recommend the literature students. First, you have to study, do a research about that time period and about the author. Do some research, and then you can go through the novel or the poetry or the drama, whatever the literature piece you're studying. And it's very easier for you to understand, and to your perspective, the point of view might be different. To understand that, you can just go through the novel or the drama that you are studying, and then uh, you can just write down what you are thinking, just like a comment about what you read. And then you can do a research about the time period and about the author and all these facts, and then again go through the novel or the poetry, whatever the literature piece you're studying, and your perspective change, because you see through it in a through a different angle, because you have studied uh, that about that time period and all. So the next author, the novelist we are going to talk about is the Bronte sisters. So I hope you all know about the Bronte sisters. So, those are my favorite ones. So Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, and Anne Bronte. So they are when it comes to their vibe, it's they have chosen, it's so moody and gothic, more into intense passion. So uh, when it comes to their key works or the important works done by them, Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, that's my favorite. I think I have read it more than 10 times. It's a really nice story, and every single time I'm reading this novel, Jane Eyre, I see in a different perspective, and I add some more into my perspective or the knowledge, the information, and everything, the way I see the characters. And also, when you grow up, it actually hits very differently. So, especially, I told you, like, I have read Jane Eyre more than 10 times, and every single time it hits different life situations that was mentioned in the novel, it all changed. So, it was like that. So, and then Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. So, why it actually matters? So, living out in the countryside with an alcoholic brother and strict father, the Bronte sisters, that was their experience. So, they created worlds driven by raw emotion. So, in Jane Eyre, Charlotte gave us a plain, poor, orphan's character, so who refuses to be controlled by anyone. So by in Wuthering Heights, Emily gave us Heathcliff and Catherine a toxic, obsessive, and ghost-haunted romance that completely shocked proper Victorian society. So you can just go through both the novels and just have your own idea of the comments. And then we can talk about Thomas Hardy. His vibe was pure tragedy and uncaring universe, like it's so gloomy about fate and all. And his works include Test of the Bowels and Jude the Obscure. So why it matters? So Hardy writes right at the end of the era. So his characters try their best, but society's moral rules or the blind lucks, or we can say the bad luck, crushed them every time. So people were so offended by Jude the Obscure that some bookshops actually burned copies of it. So it says when you Google it and look into more information about it, you can just find out that people kind of hate it. So when it comes to poetry, we can talk about Alfred Lord Tennyson. So, as the official poet laureate, that was his like title given to him. So he wrote in memoriam after losing his best friend. It's basically a massive poem about grief, doubt, and trying to stay hopeful. So even when science tells you nature doesn't care if you live or die, so that poetry, that poem is just like that. And Robert and Elizabeth Barrett Browning. So this power couple, they are Robert and Elizabeth. They are a couple, as you know. So Robert would write poems where sketchy historical characters, like Duke, like who probably murdered his wife and talks to a silent listener, and accidentally spilling all their dark secrets to the reader. So meanwhile, Elizabeth was writing fierce love sonnets and like completely like contrast themes, and it's totally different. And also, she was like speaking out against child labor that was happened due to as a reason for the because of the industrial revolution. So that was that. And by the 1890s, the Victorian mood completely shifted, and the people were tired of pretending everything was moral and proper. So that's why when it comes to like Victorian era, Victorian time period, it's so you can just imagine how the people act. They have this all the like kind of very moral characters, like uh, the way they have their own way of going somewhere, like when it comes to eating, especially like in drinking tea, having a tea party. There are some ethics, like social things to follow. But when it comes by the late 80s, 1890s, the Victorian mood, this completely shifted. Like people were very tired of pretending everything was moral and proper. So two big things happened. The first one is Oscar Wilde and aestheticism. So Wilde lived by the rule of art for art's sake. So he didn't care about moral lessons. So he cared about the beauty, the mockery, and this. He looked at the Victorian society as in a mocking way. So the picture of Dorian Gray, a handsome young man, stays young and beautiful, while his secret portrait ages and rots with his sins. So it's a brilliant mirror of how hypocritical high society was. So they have these brutal secrets, like the society is not that moral or that well behaved as it seems. So there are some dark secrets behind those closed doors. So that's what Oscar Wilde tried to expose. They kind of he through his literature works, he kind of tried to look into these things in a mockery way. He was kind of mocking that. And the second major thing that happened was Sherlock Holmes and Dracula. So Arthur Conan Doyle gave us Sherlock Holmes because people loved that idea that any problem could be solved with cold, rational logic. So especially being logic. So, but on the flip side, Bram Stoker gave us Dracula, so showing a deep seated fear that ancient foreign forces could sneak into London and destroy the empire from within. So these two major things happened, and it's kind of coming to an end of Victorian era. So those were the two major things that happened at the end of the Victorian time period. So I would like to wrap it up for your exams, this video. And if you have further questions regarding this Victorian literature, uh, or would you like me to do a separate video, even a live session, or you can just request in the comment section down below, or you can just text me into through my Facebook page, Tanya's Diary. So you can just also follow me there. So why, when it comes to exams, so why does all of this matter for your exams and essays? The points, everything that I mentioned. So because the Victorian basically invented the modern world we live in today. So when you're writing your papers, just don't memorize the plot summaries. Just that's not going to work when you write an essay. So when you just actually just keep on memorizing everything when you study literature, it's not going to work. So look at instead of that, just look at the tensions of science versus the faith, rich versus the poor, the gender roles, the men and women, and the empire versus the colony, and actual things that happen in the society at that time. So that's where the high scoring essay points are hiding, because when the lecturer is reading, like go through your essay, they will realize that you have research, you know exactly how it was during the Victorian era, how the time period, the important thing that happened in that time period. So when you have this knowledge, you can easily like deep dive into the topics and write a really good answer for your exams. So if this video helped to clear things up for your literature preparation, so drop a comment below telling me which Victorian book is currently you're reading on your syllabus, or if you enjoy the video. And as I mentioned before, if there's any kind of request, I would appreciate if you can comment down below, so it helps for me to create more videos in the future related to English literature. So good luck with your studies and stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe to my channel, Sparkly Tiana, and stay tuned.